say, let me know if when and if we're live.
Okay, I'm looking.
Oh yeah, it's working. It's working for we're on.
Motherfucker. Okay, hey. Whoa, I'm hearing this big echo.
We have to mute
Oh, I gotta mute my.
YouTube. See, I'm already way ahead of you. By the way, you just swear.
Why am I? I did. Guys, hold on just a second. I gotta mute on two. I'm on two tabs. That's why I opened it up twice accidentally. Holy shit. Okay, so thank you, Michael. I'm glad you understood. All right, hold on. I'm gonna do the intro. One second. I'm gonna shut down one of these screens. Let me figure out which one. That one's gone.
I don't know. Ali is speaking to himself.
All right.
Okay. Hey.
Welcome everybody to a special episode, an Ask Us Anything episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. I'm the author of The Atheist Muslim, and with me is Armin Navabi, the author of Why There Is No God and the founder of the largest online platform for atheists around the world, with 1.9 million people and counting. Armin Navabi. Did I say Armin? Atheist Republic. Sorry, that's the platform.
I'm a founder of Armin Navabi as well, actually.
Yeah, okay.
All right, hi.
I don't know if you are. Yeah, so...
oh, yeah, that goes to my mom. Yeah, never mind.
This is one of our special Ask Us Anything episodes. This is public, so a lot of you who are joining in today are actually... You're not patrons of the podcast, but, you get to... We're talking to you, and, we're going to take everybody's questions, and we're going to answer stuff. Just a little bit about this podcast, for those who don't know. It's called Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. The focus is on secularists, agnostics, atheists across the Muslim world. We generally talk about religion, faith, the geopolitics that surrounds it, and a whole bunch of other things. We've had some amazing guests recently. Most recently we had Steven Pinker, the author of Enlightenment Now. We've had Masih Alinejad, who is the founder of the My Stealthy Freedom movement, of the women who are taking off their hijabs in Iran. We've had Jerry Coyne, the evolutionary biologist, Jimmy London, the ex-Muslim LGBT activist from England, just loads and loads of people. Bangladeshi blogger Rehan Abir. We've got upcoming episodes with Matt Dillahunty, and yeah, just lots of great stuff going on. So check it out. If you are interested in supporting the podcast, please go to secularjihadist.com. Over there, you can do it. I'm not going to try to sell this too much because,
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
This is why I started early, because so that people that join at 7, they could skip all that part.
Yeah, they can skip all that stuff. Okay, so welcome everyone. So we're going to, today we're just going to take a bunch of questions. I know, Armin, you've been creating some fires. I've been getting messages like... Anyway,
yeah. Actually,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I've been
being the fire. You made that video where you barbecued.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
I lost a lot of friends this weekend, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So, should we start?
Well,
everybody, welcome. I'm seeing all the questions already coming in.
Yeah.
Carrie is saying, so we're not going to say the last names here, just for. We just don't do that for security reasons. But so Carrie is saying, how's your day going? The day is going pretty well. This is actually one of the highlights of the month for me, doing our Ask Us Anything episode. So I always enjoy these a lot, even though I missed the last one because I was traveling. However, my day is going well. I was looking forward to this, and now I'm doing it. This was what I was looking forward to all day. Armin, how's your day going?
We'll see.
Okay.
It's not over yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Theomachi says, what's up? Super excited. Here's a question. Is a good way of describing Muhammad and Islam's spread comparing it to Genghis Khan and the Mongols?
Yes.
Minus religious freedom?
Yes. Very good comparison. Don't you think? Like you had a bunch of people in Mongolia that didn't seem to ever be able to become a source of power, right? And they were all divided. They all had their infighting, and this guy shows up and basically creates a super tribe out of all these little tribes, stops the infighting, and they build an empire out of a bunch of nomads, which is so much like what happened with the tribes in Arabia, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of exactly the same story. Like,
I think it's very similar. The only distinction I would make is that I think that a lot of the stuff happened, a lot of Islam spread actually happened after Muhammad. And the way it happened was actually astounding because I mean until
no,
Muhammad's death.
that was also, wait a minute, after Genghis Khan. Actually, you're right. So Genghis Khan was responsible for a lot of the conquest, but also people that died after him. No, people that did some conquest after he died. But Muhammad, you're right. Muhammad, there was not much conquest during his time. It was mostly
But
after.
what happened is what's really astounding, because if you look at the proportionality of it, right afterwards, Genghis Khan is probably a combination of Muhammad and Omar. Omar is the second caliph of Islam. So Omar was the guy who, I mean, because, people ask about, they're like, well, Islam spread so fast. I'm like, well, this is a time, you have to imagine this. This is a time after Muhammad dies. You don't have airplanes. You don't have mail. You don't even have snail mail. Everybody's going around on camels and horses. You don't have automobiles. You don't have anything. And in that time, within just a matter of decades, right, less than 100 years, Islam had spread from Spain in the west all the way to the western parts of India in the east. Okay, that is massive. Now, do you do that by taking, if it's a huge philosophical religion that you have to sit and understand, do you do that in such a short time by passing out pamphlets in the desert, smiling, a whole bunch of smiling Sahabas saying, please learn about Islam? No, you don't. You basically take your sword, you go up, put it to the throat of people, say La ilaha illallah, or you're dead. And that's the way you can read. That's why they say Islam was spread by the sword.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's impossible to have that kind of incredibly,
but you need both
spread within a short amount of time. You do need both.
No,
but
let me actually, this is what you're saying is a good point to point to their differences as well, right? After the Genghis Khan and after a few generations, you don't see like the Mongol culture or ideology anywhere in the world anymore, right? Because I think it was conquest and conquest only. It wasn't much about spreading an ideology, right? But Islam was conquest and also an ideology, and that's why, and also it was a supernatural, like out of this world ideology, which promised people something above and beyond this life, whereas Genghis Khan only promises people more land and wealth, right? And that's why you don't see Genghis Khan's, after a few generations, completely died out, but you see Islam still around. By the way, and one thing else I want to point out is, by the way, I know this is all very simplified, but we don't want to do a history lesson course here, right? But another thing is that nobody's going to come and say, we just compared the Mongol Empire with with the spread of Arab Empire, and Genghis Khan with Muhammad, right? But I don't think anybody is going to complain about this comparison. Do you? Like, nobody is going to come and say they're apples and oranges. Why are you comparing them? This is very offensive.
No, you can't take. There's no two things in history that are ever perfect.
I know, but that's the point. Nobody's going to make that point here. Nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to be like, why are you comparing these two?
No, but it is a good way to illustrate it.
It is a good way, and everybody recognizes that this comparison is fair. But if we did the same thing with Islam and Nazism, people would lose their shit, wouldn't they? Right? Even though the Genghis Khan. Wait, I'm not putting the camera on you as much.
Yeah.
But you remind me to, when you're speaking, to switch the camera. But even though Genghis Khan killed way more people than Hitler, even both in total amount and percentage of population, right? But nobody's going to be as sensitive about it. If you say that's farther back, if I compare Islam with communism, people are not going to get offended about that either, even though communism is responsible for more death than Nazism. Why is it that if these comparisons nobody gets offended about, but when we compare Islam with Nazism and compare their similar, and people are like, well, they're not the same. Yeah, that's why you compare them. You point about similarity, you talk about similarities and differences. Why is it that people lose their mind when you compare Islam to Nazism? Yeah.
I don't think it's a very good comparison to communism. You're talking about the spread of it?
Any comparison, whether it's like, you could be like, well, I mean, you could be talking about the fact, I don't know, some people compare, say Muhammad was, it doesn't matter if what similarities they have or what differences they have.
I think it's a good. I think the Genghis Khan thing, any kind of conquest from that time that was.
So, do you think it's a good comparison with Nazism?
I no, I don't think so. I don't think overall if you're talking about the history and the spread and everything, I don't think
you're talking about personality cults, right? You're talking about people like
when it comes to personality cults. Yes, I think that the Nazism is just one of the things that you can compare all of these sort of like. I think of Nazism as like a religious movement too, in a way, right?
Well,
but what I would the only thing I say when we talk about the whole. Because everybody's talking about this Islam Nazism comparison. I know it's caused a lot of issues. The only thing I say is when you taken scripturally, all of the Abrahamic religions, including Islam, right, have pretty much all the elements that Nazism does, and that includes actually the Old Testament. That includes the way that Christianity was, the way that it was in its earlier days. That includes Islam, and it's taken scripturally. When you look at the scripture, all of that stuff, the reward, punishment, the slavery, the totalitarianism, the authoritarianism, the thought control, the conquest aspect, everything, the anti-Semitism, all of that I think is in there. But I just don't know. I don't know if it's this jump to compare every things to Nazism to show how bad they are. I think we're playing into that too, because then we're acknowledging
what's wrong with that. What's wrong with that? First of all, my point is that one, it's not that. I mean, we could talk about that whether it's a fair comparison or not. My point is the second part is that. Why is it offensive? It's not even offensive. Another thing is that you mentioned something you just mentioned, that everybody jumps into comparing things to Nazism. Do you know why? Do you know why it's it's called the Godwin Law. It's not, people think it's a Godwin fallacy. It's not a fallacy, it's a law. Do you know why it's a law? Because it's such a good comparison. You know why it's such a good comparison? Because most people don't know their history. Most people don't know about the Mongol Empire or the Arab Empire or any, like, you compare things to Nazism because it's a piece of history where most people know about, right? That's why, you don't, if I compare things to the Mongol Empire, a lot of people don't know the details around. People know the camps, the Auschwitz, they know about the trains, they know about SS, they know about, there's endless number of movies about it. This is an evil, even if it's not the greatest evil in history, it's an evil that people know the details about. That's why you compare it to, because when you compare other evils to it, you use something that is more, that people have a knowledge about. That's, again, it's called a Godwin Law, not a fallacy.
But there's also there's also families who went through it, and all of the sort of communism. No, I understand the historical consequences of it, where people think that when you compare things to Nazism, what that does is it diminishes.
It does the exact opposite.
There was this, and this was just as bad as Nazism. Then there was this, and it was just as. Your point about the one thing that I agree with you that you're saying is the whole idea of, I thought this a lot. Mao killed way more people than Hitler did. What's his name? Who's the other dude? Stalin. Stalin killed way more people than Hitler did. And
Genghis Khan killed more than all of them combined.
Right. So I think that this whole idea that it's a disproportionately, people think of Hitler as like the most evil person of all time.
They're so sensitive about it, and they're so sensitive. Another reason why you should compare stuff to Nazism is because people say you shouldn't.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on with that. What's the next? Let's see. Next question. So we had the Mongols. Theomachi, that was him. Okay. Unify the people. Theo. I'm pronouncing you, but your name.
I say Theo just for short.
Theo. Okay. So Zane is asking, having criticized Islam so much, which I have no opposition to, do you guys feel comfortable flying on Gulf carriers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I fly a lot.
I'm not gonna.
Now I'm okay. Behaviors. How split is the general public between the fundamentalist and liberal poles in that country? That's a very good question.
Wait, what was the question again? Sorry.
The question. Okay, I'll say it again. Ali, you've lived in Saudi Arabia. I've known friends from there who I think would qualify as liberal Muslims, judging from my conversations with them and their behavior. How split is the general public between the fundamentalist and liberal poles in that country? So I'll tell you, when I was living there, and this is some time ago, and it's changed quite a bit since I left. when I grew up, there was this. The royal family was generally very liberal, right? I mean, they were known to have all these parties and drink and go overseas and things like that. Underground, there were people who were sort of more liberal and not as religious. But in general, the public they had problems with the stuff the government was doing. So, for example, they'd had on TV when they'd have the transition music, like during the news, they had the music. They used to complain about that because they used to think that music was haram. They shouldn't have any music on TV. Some people didn't think that you should have any, like there's a hadith about not having living things, pictures of living things or images of living things because it can encourage idolatry. So there were people who were ultra conservative. So a lot of the public was not happy with the way that the government was too liberal. So it was the other way around. It wasn't the government that was sort of oppressing them as much as they actually wanted a more.
Iran's revolution had an impact on that.
Yeah, they did. So now what's happening though, or from what I hear, especially with the popularity of the new guy, Mohammed bin Salman, who is obviously there's a lot of problems with him, but overall. Most of the people in Saudi Arabia are young. Many of them, I think, especially since the internet came around, many of them are becoming more westernized. They're tending to become more liberal. They've had access to things that they didn't before, as the Richard Dawkins, the Arabic version of the God Delusion was downloaded about 3 million times in Saudi Arabia, about 10 to 13 million times in the rest of the Middle East. The poll that came out in 2012, the Gallup poll, found that 19% of Saudis identify as non-religious. 5% of Saudis identify as confirmed atheists. Not non-religious, not agnostic.
That's how many people? 5% of Saudi Arabia? That's
5% of, so in a population of 26 million, it's over 1 million people.
A million atheists in Saudi fucking Arabia. Holy shit.
A million people who say that they're confirmed atheists and reported that. We have every reason to believe that number is underreported, considering the fact that atheism is punishable by death in Saudi Arabia, and atheism as of 2014 has been declared a terrorist offense. Why has it been declared a terrorist offense since 2014 so recently? Is because of this recent rise in secular thought and atheist thought among Saudi youth. So there's a pretty big change happening in Saudi Arabia as it is everywhere else. So there is definitely a split. I think a lot of the split is generational, but the generational split in countries, in Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, or even in Iran, as Armin will tell you, is actually quite significant, because the way that the generational split happens is that over 70% of the population, right, is under the age of 30. So in Iran, for example, the vast majority of people in Iran were born after the revolution of 1979. Right? Only less than a third of them were actually there when the revolution happened. So there's a. All
right, let's get to the next question. I just want to add.
It could go on. This is a very interesting topic.
I just want to really quickly add that the 1979 revolution in Iran, which was a revolution against. Oh, let me switch to my camera. A revolution against monarchy, and it turned into Islamic, and basically people demanded to have more Islam in their government, something that a lot of people regret now in Iran. That had a huge impact on Saudi Arabia becoming more fundamentalist as well, because Saudi Arabia, is basically the government, the establishment. There is basically a marriage between two families, which is the House of Saud and the House of Wahhab. With the Wahhab is traditionally the more religious one. The Saud one is the more business, secular. Well, not secular. Well, more business-oriented one. But with the oil and everything, and the closeness with the United States, the House of Saud was moving closer and closer to making everything westernized, and a lot of people, religious people in Saudi Arabia, were not very happy about that, and they were pushing the government there to change, but they were largely ignored until the 1979 revolution in Iran, which encouraged a lot of religious figures in Saudi Arabia to also want more religion in their government. And actually, there was an attack on Kaaba. It was an armed attack in Kaaba, which was...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, 1979, but exactly at the same time. Well, not exactly, but around the same time. But the government managed to get to kill the person that started that. But they got really scared, and after that, they decided to, they didn't want to lose. Their power, and they were, after what they saw what happened to the Shah in Iran, they wanted to make sure that they do everything possible for that not to happen to them. And that's when as the Saudi government became more and more religious, and they tried to make sure that the Wahhabis have a lot of influence in the rules and what passes as law. Women's roles became much less. Their freedoms went away, and everything went backwards after that. But by the way, thank you so much, Dan O, for the $1 super chat. That's very sweet. That's very very kind. Thank you so much. Oh, Beej is here. Hi, Beej.
Yeah. Hey. So I'm going to move on to Brian has a really good question. He said, "Can either of you PayPal me $1,000 really quick? I need to buy a laptop and I need $1,000. Just quickly PayPal me, guys. Don't even think about it." You know what? I'm going to tell you something that I told a guy who needed, I think, subway money in New York just a couple of weekends ago. Is that, I don't have any right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, Michael.
Okay.
People often say that fascists and communists killed so many people. But would it be less or more victims if Christian and Islamic empires had 20th century technology? Okay, so we're going back to the same topic.
We covered this, I think.
Yeah, we covered it. I think that, if they had all of the same thing, we would see the same. I actually don't see them as very different at all.
Anyway. But I don't know. Again, Genghis Khan managed to kill more than anybody with less technology.
With less technology, yeah.
He actually changed the environment. That's how much he killed people.
Right. So let's go on with Why So Religious? Okay. That's the name. Both leftists and Muslims claim that no country has implemented true systems.
Everybody says that, though. No. Everybody's ideology, when it doesn't work out, they were like, well, they didn't do the correct way. They didn't do it right.
Yeah, I've heard libertarians say that
Christians,
too. Like, so you just let it happen, then everything would correct itself eventually. Okay, so Brian, the $1,000 guy, has another question that's legitimate. But his question is, have you guys ever listened to the rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine? Please do if not. Thank you, Brian. Loving this. This is great. Okay, going on to Chi. Chi says, many Muslims say that Islam was not spread by the sword. Hence, how do you refute this claim? Well, I'll just quickly reiterate what I said before, is that when you have the spread of an ideology back in the 7th and 8th centuries, like within 100 years from Spain to India, right? Within a sense, when you have something that spreads that fast without cars, without mail, without a postal service, without internet, without the printing press, without any of that stuff, when you have that, it's not. There's no other way. What way would it spread except for by the sword?
Well,
this is basically conquest.
Let's give some credit to Islam. When we criticize Islam, we are taken more seriously. There are some examples where that is correct. For example, Indonesia. Islam came to Indonesia because of the spice trade, not through the sword, right? Mm-hmm. And also,
sure, yeah. But that was much later.
Much later, but during Omar we're
talking about the immediate first 100 years after.
So to give credit let's give credit to Omar. I mean, again, he was obvious. He killed a lot of people. Omar. But I mean, Omar was pretty good, savvy when it came to military strategy. He ended up. He was a philosopher. He was a military man. And one thing to give him credit for is that it was when he invaded other countries, he didn't force people to take Islam, right? And I know this is going to be controversial to the people that are anti-Islamic, but he didn't. he let the Christians and the Jews continue practicing their own religion. And I think this wasn't the norm at the time, right? Even among Christians who invaded other countries, right? In fact, after the invasions, a lot of the other caliphs, they preferred if people did not convert to Islam, because a lot of the source of the income from was for the caliphs were the money that the non-Muslims had, the jizya that the non-Muslims had to pay, right? So if you were not a Muslim, you had to pay extra taxes than Muslims, and a lot of people wanted to convert to Islam to avoid paying that taxes, and they tried to make that difficult because they didn't want them to convert to Islam so that they continue. There was this bias between who could become a Muslim. If you're not an Arab, then there was some discrimination against you. Again, this was something that was not what Muhammad had preached in Islam, because Muhammad wanted to make it. Muhammad, for all his faults, he was not a racist. He was a bigot because he made a super tribe, which is that makes Muslims consider superior to non-Muslims. But as long as you're a Muslim, then you're equal, right? But after his death, this whole Arab superiority became a big issue. So if you're not an Arab, becoming a Muslim was not really something that was encouraged. So yeah, I mean,
there's also a lot of historical. This is very interesting. I think that about the whole idea of the Arab entity and how that was arising around the time that Islam was coming around as well. So there was some conflation of that too. Like there's some scholarly disputes about whether there was such a thing as the Arab ethnicity recognized as an entity at the time as well. So. Many people say that the Quran was the first Arabic book, so even the language was in its infancy. So there's some of the stuff that is back there. A lot of the Islamic history is actually fascinating. It's absolutely it's really, really, because it does coincide with the emergence of the Arabic language, how it developed from the from Syriac and Aramaic. Or I think Syriac is a kind of Aramaic. But anyway, there's a lot of stuff about the evolution of the Arab ethnicity, how people started identifying as Arab anyway. So
by the way, we got another super chat from Harris Sultan.
Okay. I want to add one more comment to Chi. The most important thing, what is the evidence that Islam was spread by the sword? Apostasy laws. Apostasy is right there. Right. So that's a remnant that we still have, that if you convert out of Islam or if you speak up against Islam, the blasphemy, if you commit blasphemy or apostasy, the punishment is death. This is widely accepted by the vast majority of Islamic scholars of multiple sects. And so when you have that means that automatically means it was spread by the sword when you're doing it under.
Actually, let me add to that. It would be if Islam was not spread by the sword, it would make it a very weird thing for its time. Like, I don't understand, because people use like make Islam apologist when you point out that something that happened in Islam at that time, we were like, well, that was the norm at the time. But then when you say that Islam was not spread by the sword, well, I mean, every empire that got spread at that time was spread by the sword at the time. So within the argument that it was the norm, apply to this as well. Like, which empire? Give me an empire that was not spread by the sword, right? Like, that's how empires spread. But let's just can you? Harry Sultan just gave us a $5. Is that it? Why is there an A next to the dollar sign there? But
it doesn't matter.
Okay, but that's great. Thank you, Harris.
Views on Imran Khan. He says, I think he's good. Not sure you've read my blog. I'm aware of his religious rhetoric, but that's just him getting religious votes. This is a very good question. It's something I'm getting asked a lot, and I haven't talked about a whole lot. When I was last living in Pakistan around 1999, Imran Khan's party, the Tehreek-e-Insaf, which is a party of justice, was just getting started. It was in its infancy. He worked really hard over the next 20 years, and now he's pretty much going to be the prime minister. He's an ex-cricketer. He had a youth that was called, he's thought of as a playboy. He used to be, his first wife was Jemima Goldsmith, and he was he was a very westernized kind of guy. That's how he was known. And then with time, he became more and more religious, started adopting more and more religious views.
Isn't he tough on Ahmadis? Like, isn't he like some have?
Yeah, he's doing so. So what happened was that initially he's been all over the books. Like he's been at first, he used to talk about equal rights for all minorities, and he used to do that at one point. But then more recently, he's been known to become a sort of, they call him the Taliban sympathizer. He sympathizes with the Taliban. He has started speaking out against Ahmadis. He has started.
Does he sympathize with Taliban, or does he recognize that you have to talk to them because it's impossible not to? Like yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is a little complicated, Harris, but I will tell you one thing. The leader of Pakistan, his name is Qamar Javed Bajwa, right? It's not Imran Khan. It was never Nawaz Sharif. It was never anybody else. Qamar Javed Bajwa is the most powerful man in Pakistan right now because he's the chief of army staff. So he's the head of the military. In Pakistan, the military runs everything. Imran Khan, one of the reasons that he was finally able to win is he started gaining the favor of the military and of their inter-services intelligence, their intelligence agency, which is the ISI. So that really is what it comes down to. Now, what the army and the ISI want to do is they do want to support. They have had a policy of sort of sympathizing with the Taliban, supporting them as a buffer against India. They want to counter Indian influence.
Oh, what the fuck, really?
Yeah, they want to counter it since the 1990s.
I thought Imran just had an olive branch to India. Like he said, like let's have. Didn't he just say that?
Yeah, no, they all do that. But the thing is, so here's the way that Pakistan works. The military wants supreme power. They're like the Ayatollah of Iran, right? They essentially run the country. They always have. They have repeatedly. They've basically fired prime ministers, and they've vacated the government and held new elections and taken over. Musharraf was a military leader. Before that, Ziaul-Haq was a military leader. I mean, they just come in, they take over. They can do that anytime they want to. The civilian government is secondary. It's a little bit like Egypt, actually. It's actually quite similar to Egypt, where the military has more power than the civilian
But
government.
I thought the military was more secular than its people, both in Egypt and in Pakistan. But if there's Taliban sympathizer, then I don't know.
Well, the Taliban, the Taliban thing is complicated. There's a Pakistani Taliban that carries out attacks, or that used to carry out a lot of attacks in Pakistan. They've diminished recently. Then there's the Afghan Taliban. So what the military and the ISI in Pakistan like doing is they like supporting the Afghan Taliban. And the reason for that is because they want to prevent Indian influence in Afghanistan. So they're for them, they're living the old days where the biggest enemy is India. They think that Pakistan is just as powerful as India. They're equivalent powers, even though they're not. India is like just progressed by leaps and bounds, and Pakistan is still essentially a shithole and borderline failed state. So there's they have this mindset, and they want to leave all of the domestic issues and the poverty and all of that. They let the civilian head deal with it. So Imran Khan, but as long as he doesn't meddle with their foreign policy vision. So eventually he had to come around, and he had to say, okay, I'm with the army, I'm with the ISI. I want to talk to the Taliban. I want to negotiate with them. And he has sort of towed the army line of allying with the Islamists as well.
Fuck.
Now, just one last thing. The positive part of it, Harris, is that in the past, the Benazir Bhutto, her party, the People's Party, and PMLN, this is Nawaz Sharif's party, were both, I think, there was a lot of corruption. Imran Khan is something that hasn't been tried before. So he's here. We don't know what he said for political reasons. We don't know what he's actually going to do. All we know is that when it comes to the foreign policy stuff, the military is still going to be in control. But domestically, he may do good things. He may do stuff that is not... he may decrease corruption. There might be some hope when it comes to that. But
he doesn't have much experience, though, right? Like he has very little experience. And when people
he's had a political party for 20 years. He's actually honed his skills very well.
Why do people say that they don't know what his ideology is? Like when it comes to policy, like he just says like, "Oh, I'm going to take care of the poor."
Elected. Huh? He's never actually been elected to a leadership role. So
okay, that's what I mean.
So people when they which is fine. Because what's happened in Pakistan is you've had Nawaz Sharif was prime minister 3 different times. Benazir was prime minister like 2, 3 different times. Like the military keeps on coming in. So
all right, we need to move on. But just one last question. When people say that he has blood on his hands when it comes to Ahmadis, is that correct?
Anybody who opposes, who adds to this rhetoric that Ahmadis are not true Muslims and they're apostates, has blood on their hands, and that includes Imran Khan.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Okay, so the next question is, where were we? Okay, so Chi was the last question.
We got another super chat, by the way, from Kyle. Thank you so much, Kyle. This is $5 saying, I love you guys. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Kyle. That's very sweet. All right.
Thank you. Why So Religious says Nazis were socialist. Man. Okay.
Yeah, but that's not why. I mean, I don't like socialism, but that's not why we hate them.
Yeah, that's not why. They weren't really. They were socialists. They were also totalitarian. They were also that there's an argument to be made that the Nazis were very far right, and there's also an argument to be made that they were very far left. I don't think that this kind of thing, to me, it's not convincing. It just feels like it's point scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again, but we're both against socialism, but to compare to, like, to say that they're we hate no socialism because Nazis were socialists, I don't think that's the right. Okay.
But I'm not. I don't think that there's capitalism, socialism, all these things. I think these are sort of late 20th century dialogues that all these things were different. I think you need a mixture of all of them. Now in Canada, I think, which is a great country, we do have a mixture of things. We have the thing, and it creates checks and balances.
Okay, let's not get into economic policies, but let's go next.
So Brian. Okay, no, Brian. Okay, now he's got an even more reasonable question. Now he's still talking about $1,000 and spending it half and half. I like this. This is great. It's a good different thing. Steven says Bart Ehrman and Matt Dillahunty are good at debating Christians. Are there Islamic equivalents available on YouTube?
Ali Rizvi.
Good at debating Muslims. I've done it.
Here's my list of people: Ali Rizvi, Muhammad Sayed. But when it comes to debating, not just like detailed history and philosophy, not just hijab is.
I would add Armin Navabi to that. I think you have a very, very good grasp of the.
Well, thank you. Imtiaz Shams.
Imtiaz Shams for sure.
Yeah. And again, like I like other people, other ex-Muslims out there as well. I just like them for other reasons. But when it comes to the details of the history and the other ex-Muslims, the other well-known ex-Muslims, they also know Islam very well, right? But they know different aspects of Islam. It just, when it comes to knowing the Quran, knowing the Hadith, knowing the history, the ones that Imtiaz, Muhammad Sayed, and Ali Rizvi, these are my favorites. Again, nothing to take away from the other ex-Muslims. They all fight on other issues which are very important, and they should be supported as well. But go, yeah.
Yeah, so and I think we should have more debates like that. It's just that a lot of imams and everything aren't willing to. They're not willing to. I'd like to point everybody to. It wasn't. I wish it was a longer debate, but I was on the agenda with Steve Paikin, which is a very popular Canadian show, and I was with Shabir Ali, who is an imam or like a Muslim scholar, and Mohammed Fadel, who's another Muslim, and Rahil Raza as well. So we had a really good panel discussion around Ayan Hirsi Ali's Heretic book. Yeah. So if you want to look that up on YouTube, it's the agenda with Steve Bacon. It's called Reforming Islam, I think part 2. So do check that out if you can. Ali Armin, another question. This is from Mars. I hope you two can help us. Do you two have any books you could suggest to help us research Islam? I've read Bernard Lewis's and tried Malise Ruthven. Is there anything else you guys can suggest for more?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit biased here. I suggest, by the way, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. You mean reduce the volume a little bit. And I'll reduce my volume as well. The Shia revival. This is like not complete all Islam. This is about Shiism, especially when it comes to Iran. I just wanted to do a little bit more. I mean, if you've read already a lot about Islam, if you want to get a little bit more detail, a little bit more specific, one very interesting book is Shia Revival by Vali Nasr. And this is I know this is biased because it's a little bit Shia and Iran focused, but it's my own personal bias. I loved reading that book. It was very enlightening and very educational, but and fun to read. But do you
Yeah,
have?
I think I'd second that. I don't. Yeah, I
Oh,
tell
you have read.
people just
You
read
have read.
Quran commentaries, huh?
You have read Shia Revival? Have you read that book, Shia Revival? You
No,
just,
no, I haven't.
oh,
I haven't,
okay,
I
okay.
haven't read it.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of books. I have found that this is weird. I like the Brill Encyclopedia. Have you heard of that?
No.
The Encyclopedia of Islam. There's I think it's like 22 or 23 volumes or something. But you can look up every topic and it'll tell you everything about that topic historically, in terms of the Hadith, what the Quran says, the multiple different interpretations from the Shia, the Sunni, even the subsects, and it really, really goes into a lot of detail. And I think the good thing about this is that most of them are free online. Each volume is like 900 pages. I use that a lot for when I research my book. So,
Oh.
it has things like, for example, the writings of Ibn Abbas, when people said that when ISIS throws gays off rooftops, that has no basis in Islam. But apparently it does. Ibn Abbas advocated for it. He actually said it very, very clearly. So
Okay,
there are...
one thing that on Islamic, tell me if this is true. One thing on Islamic that ISIS did was killing Christians without giving them up. Like, don't you think like Ahlul Kitab should not be killed? Isn't that like anti-Islamic?
ISIS insists that they didn't kill Christians.
But I saw a video of them taking a whole bunch of Christians on the beach and killing the Christians. So that's that. They can't. If they were Hindu, they would.
Yeah.
If they were Hindu, it's okay to kill them. But Christians, you can't just kill.
Because my understanding was that I don't know if there was any other compounding reason. No, now you got me in a position where I'm defending ISIS. This is amazing. No, but I don't know.
No,
if there
you're
was
not
a
defending
compounding
ISIS.
reason.
You're saying ISIS is Islamic. That's not something positive to say about it.
Yeah, but generally what they did was they would ask Christians to convert. This is according to Surah 9, verses 29 and 30 in the Quran. They would ask the Christians to convert, like in Mosul. Mosul had a large Christian population. They would ask them to convert. If they didn't convert, then they'd ask them to pay the jizya tax, which is a tax that's based on Ahlul Kitab, people of the book who are not Muslim, like Christians and
You
Jews.
have three options, right? Yeah. Wait, I keep forgetting to change the camera. Yeah, if you're not a Muslim, but you're one of the Ahlul Kitab, which means either Christian or Jew, you have three options. You could either pay the jizya, which is the extra tax for the non-Muslims. If you're not one of these three, Muslim, Christian, or Jew, you're fucked. Okay, but if you're one of these three, they see like as a family of part of the Islam, so that's kind of okay. But you either have to convert to Islam. You can remain a Christian, but you have to pay the extra tax, which is the jizya, or you have to die. One of these three options.
Right.
So go on.
Yeah, so that's basically what it is. Anyway, one thing I will say is I like, there's this guy I've been reading recently. He's not, I haven't read his book. He's in Germany. His name is Wilfred Madelung. He's got some really interesting and different perspectives on the history of Islam. One of them was about the successorship issue.
Wait, but you were answering a question. So they took the Christians and.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was going back to the books. But anyway, they were taking the. Yeah, I don't know what they did with the Christians, but generally, what they were doing with the Christians in Mosul was it was giving them those three options. That you pay the jizya tax or you convert.
I can't believe though. I saw a video where they killed 20 Christians on the beach, 20 or something, and I can't believe all those Christians were like, nope, I'm not going to pay extra tax, and I'm not going to convert to Islam. Just behead me. Like,
I don't know what the thing is. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
So,
anyways,
Zayn was actually clarifying his question. He's saying that when you talked about flying on airports, he said, "Are you scared of being detained at the Abu Dhabi, Dubai, or Doha airports?" Yeah. So, so one of the things that works to my advantage. Now, those three they're different places. I would probably be okay going to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I think that I'm Canadian, so the whole Canadian citizenship thing works. Doha, I would go there to actually have a friend live there for a very long time.
Right.
I would go there with a lot of precaution, with a lot of anonymity, without any fanfare, without announcing where I am, without checking in, all that stuff. I mean, checking in the airport, yeah, but not checking in online. So there are other places, though, that I wouldn't go. Very clearly, I think Pakistan is one of them. I've been wanting to go for a very long time. I hope the day comes when I can go. But every time I do start thinking about it, I am immediately told by my friends and much of my family that it's not safe for me to go there.
No, well, Pakistan is fucking obvious. But what I'm not sure if it's obvious. For example, a lot of people from Dubai tell me to come to Dubai. They say like, "Don't worry, it's not as bad. You're safe here." right? But the only thing, here's the thing, the problem is I have dual citizenship, right? I am citizen of both Canada and Iran, right? So let's say I go to Dubai and they're not going to kill me, but they decide that, hey, Armin, we have a video of you that you burned the Quran, you're arrested, and we're going to deport you. I'm like, okay, deport me, fine. Deport me. I'm like, no, we're going to deport you back to Iran.
Okay, that's a problem.
Then I'm like, oh, fuck no, I'm a Canadian, deport me to Canada. But if they deport me back to Iran, then I'm fucked. I'm going to get hanged, right? So I don't know. I don't know the details. I don't know how it's going to work.
Actually, you know what? They did that to Maher Arar. It wasn't even Dubai that did that. It was the United States. This is like shortly after 9/11. He was Syrian, and he was Canadian, Syrian Canadian. He wanted to come back to Canada, and instead they deported him to Syria instead of sending him back to Canada. Canada went crazy trying to get him back, and they tortured him brutally.
Oh my God! So my fears were correct. Wait, where did he get? Where was he? Where was he deported from?
From the United States. I can't remember the city, but this was shortly after 9/11.
Wait, he was a Canadian citizen?
Canadian citizen, but he was also Syrian.
And they deported him to Syria? Why?
Yeah.
What the fuck? United States did this?
I'll type it into the chat. It's Maher Arar. I think that's the right name. Let me just double check. Yeah, it was actually a horrendous story, and he came back and he would do interviews, and just the way he would talk about what happened to him.
Where is he now? Can we have him as a guest?
I can reach out to him. I'll see. Yeah, he's frequently referred to as extraordinary rendition. So this is around under the extraordinary rendition program.
Okay.
But the U.S. said that was a case of deportation. Any case, you guys should read that story just to get an idea. I mean, he's not an atheist or anything like that, but things like that do happen. And it's not just Dubai that does them, unfortunately.
All right.
So
next story.
Next question is.
Next, question.
Well, why so religious? Saying conservative doesn't mean religious. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, I'm when it comes to economics, I'm a conservative.
Right. Ayn Rand was conservative, and she was an atheist. And then Carl. So Carl says, what do you think about the intellectual dark web movement, if you can even call it a movement, and is it useful for ex-Muslims? I don't like the title. I wish it was a better title, because dark web makes me think of really, really illegal porn and torture and stuff. Dark web is like a real thing.
No, I think, okay, first of all, I don't. Now I'm going to defend the dark web. Forget about the intellectual dark web. The dark web is actually very useful.
I know where you're going to go.
Yeah, the dark web is very good for reporters that want to be undercover. There's a lot of stuff that comes out of Iran that people need to do that without being found. I think the dark web is very useful, just because the headlines are, child porn and selling illegal, gun sales and assassinations and stuff.
There's a deep web too, and I don't know that much about it. But anyway, getting back to this, the intellectual dark web, I think it's been around for a long time. I think it's the stuff that many ex-Muslims have been doing for a very, very long time. I think many liberal ex-Muslims have been doing it. I think the Four Horsemen, I'm more of a Four Horsemen guy than an intellectual dark web guy, and one of the elements is common. Sam Harris was part of the Four Horsemen too. With those four, those guys really came up, and they started talking about Islam along with the other religions when they went into the new atheist movement, and it became huge. It actually had a massive impact across Muslims. Many of the ex-Muslims that you talk to now, and there are many, many, many ex-Muslims now. It's a massive movement. A lot of them will talk about the influence of the Four Horsemen, and that was, I think, the intellectual dark web. Now the thing is that there's a lot of people in it I like. I really like I like Sam Harris a lot. I like Brett Weinstein. I think he's a great guy, very smart guy, and I agree with him on a lot of things. There are the people in it who are completely different from others.
Yeah. How could I defend the whole thing? They're all very different, right?
Yeah, they're all very, very different. So I mean, in terms of ideas, but I like the fact that everybody's getting together and talking. But I don't think that this is the first iteration of it. I think the intellectual dark web. I think Armin and I have both been part of it for over a decade now, and countless other ex-Muslims have as well. And so the Four Horsemen, Richard Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens. I think a lot of these guys were talking about unconventional ideas, and there were thinking outside their tribe, and they were reaching across and having conversations with people they didn't agree with. And Christopher Hitchens sat down with the grandson of the Ayatollah of Iran. You know, he used to go to Syria. He went to North Korea. He actually traveled the world and went to places where that were conflicted. So and then he had these conversations.
What I like, I don't know about whether the name is good or not. I don't know when it comes to branding, but whatever the name is, what I like about this whole thing is that the fact that, I mean, obviously there's a whole bunch of views within the people that are being labeled as this that I don't agree, and there's a whole bunch of views that I agree. But what I like is the fact that people that are trying to silence these kind of opinions is backfiring on them big time, right? That's what I like about it. Like, it's not working, right? So whenever you're trying to, I mean, that has always been the case, but it's just been way more now. So every time you try to silence people, you're actually giving them a bigger audience as a result of you trying to take their voice away.
Right, and that's across the board. I think that's not a liberal thing. It's not a conservative thing. This is just throughout history. You try to silence people, you try to counter bad ideas with anything else but ideas, and you turn them into heroes. And if you look at all those banned books, like who's that guy? Was it D.H. Lawrence? There were Salman Rushdie. All these. I mean, these guys ended up becoming free speech heroes later on. So. I don't think that that's a good idea at all. I'm glad that these ideas are coming out, so you can criticize them too.
All right, let's go to the next question. And by the way, Theo noticed why I'm saying next story instead of next question. It's because when Atheist Republic News, I was like, okay, next story. Very great observation, Theo.
Okay. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of liked it. I was like, okay, these aren't stories. These aren't questions. They're stories. I thought it was some cool, like, new agey shit. No. Yeah, I like it anyway.
All right.
You mentioned conservative with religious. So what about liberal Muslim? Again, yeah, religiosity. They're liberal religious people. There's conservative religious people.
Yeah, but them being liberal has nothing to do with their Islam.
Yeah.
A lot of people get influenced by many different views and opinions. A lot of people try to reduce Muslims to Muslims and nothing but Muslims. But the thing is that we're all influenced by many different views and different sources of ideas. So just like Muslims are, right? And whatever liberal views they have cannot be sourced back to Islam. They're being influenced by other ideas.
Yeah, I think why so religious with the other questions he's asking, he's trying to get to this idea that maybe we're denigrating conservatives. So I have this thing I grew up with. Whenever we talk about conservative Muslims, we talk about the really ass-backwards Muslims. When we talk about liberal Muslims, we talk about the people that we can hang out with, or at least for me. So conservative was always a bad word when you're coming from a Muslim country. And for me, actually, it always, apart from economic conservatism, or conservative economics, which I'm totally down with, there's not a whole lot on the conservative platform that I necessarily align with. So, but that's just me. There are many other people who do. I have many friends who do. My brother is, he votes conservative. So, and we get along fine. So that's not.
We just got a $20 super chat from Kyle.
Oh,
wow,
great.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Kyle. I still don't know what the super chat stuff is, but thank you. It looks like
super chat.
But does he have a question?
It's Kyle? Like you're doing. Yeah. Kyle is saying, what version of the Quran do you recommend to English speaker?
Good
speakers?
One. Yeah.
Also, is there a notated version that provides common interpretations in subtext? This is why I like the apps more than just the books, because you could see multiple translations next to each other and multiple tafsirs. Tafsir means like the interpretations and the context, and also hadith commentary, and also the story around the verse, when it came. For a non-Arabic speaker, if you compare multiple translations with each other, you could see exactly how maybe different people might view the same verse, and that's the best way to deal with it. But yeah, go on.
And specifically to address what Armin is saying, Kyle, I would refer you to a website called corpus.quran.com. That's corpus.quran.com. And that's Quran with Quran.com. And the reason that I recommend this is because it really has everything. So it's got multiple translations side by side of multiple translators. So in case someone says you've got the wrong translation, you can always look up the other one. The major ones, the most literal ones, Sahih International and Marmaduke Pickthall are right there. Those are the ones that are, I think, most closest to the written Arabic word. And then there are the more sort of, and it goes from there all the way to some of the more New Agey South Asian types. You can go to each word and in every verse, and it'll give you the etymology
Right.
of each word. There's a thing called a syntactic tree bank on this website. And you can go there and you can actually look at the syntax and the grammar.
Can you post a link in the live chat?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. Will it let me post links?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Then it's got a Quranic grammar. It's got an ontology section. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll post that here. Oh no, it says remove any web apps.
We have two Brians in the live chat. I don't know which
one. It won't let me post links, so I'll just
give it to me. Give it to me.
Corpus.Quran.com.
I think it lets me do it because I'm secular. Like I'm posting as.
Oh, there you go. I just sent it the way it's written.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So Kyle, thank you very much for your question. Really appreciate it.
And for your super chat.
And for the super chat.
All right, go next.
Okay, wait. Where are we? Guys, just give me a second. I lost my place. So many questions coming in. Thank you very much, by the way. Okay, intellectual. Okay, it would be. Brian really wants us to listen to this rapper, Tekashi 6. Okay, I'm saying his name. I'm probably promoting him, so I guess that's okay. Tekashi 6ix9ine. Just do this so that
is
Brian
that the guy with endless tattoos? But anyways, go on. Next.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. Hi Beach. Hello, Mike. Okay. There's lots of highs. Both. Okay. True Systems. Hold on. No True Scotsman. Theo Maki saying, great news. Adnan Oktar, aka Harun Yahya, aka the Muslim Ken Ham, has been arrested in Turkey. Bring it up on Atheist Republic News, Armin. You know about this, right?
Yeah, put it in the comments section on Atheist Republic last news video so that Ali Jackson will see it. By the way, I do two shows, The Secular Jihadist with Ali Rizvi and Atheist Republic News with Ali Jackson. And that's why a lot of the people that help me with all this news get so confused. I like, ask Ali, and they're like, which one?
That's funny.
Right.
Okay, Mars, are there a set of online poll stats data we can refer to comparing the activities of fundamentalist practices between the three religions? When discussing Islam, the common comeback is that Christianity has that too. The general answer is that the Enlightenment moderated Christianity, but that's a very broad thing to refer to. Is there anything else?
Wait, what is the question exactly? Can you explain it?
Well, the question, what he's saying is, are there any online polls or stats or data that we can reference when we're talking about the fundamentalist practices between the three big religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity? And the thing is, yeah, there are. They're sort of fragmented, and the semantics of all of them are different. They all, like, the problem is that what you're asking here is something that is very, very complex and comes with a lot of historical and cultural context, and we're trying to distill it and simplify it into something that can be sort of a side-by-side comparison, which is not really possible. But one example, for instance, is the definition of fundamentalism in the West is generally thought to be people who take the Bible literally. They think of it as a literal word of God. That number is about 30% in the United States. But if you look at the people who think the Quran is a literal word of God, that number, it's probably above 90%.
Above 90%? Above 99%?
No, it's above 90. You'd be surprised. There are many people who don't. So,
are you saying there's a lot of Muslims that say that the Quran is not the direct word of God?
They say it's not the literal word of God.
No, there's not a lot. Oh, yeah. Come on, there's fringe. This is so fringe.
I researched this for my book. It is fringe. You're right. It's a very small group.
I'm not saying they're not there. It's a big number because it's a small percentage of a huge number is still a big number. But right. This is so fringe.
The idea is that should it be read literally or not. So in either case, it's a massive difference between Christianity and Islam when it comes to that. However, there are many very liberal Muslims that you're going to see who are going to say, yes, the Quran is the word of God and we should take it literally. And
but they have never read it.
but they will be, they'll be very, very different and much more liberal in outlook than then the Christians who say that the Bible is the Word of God will be extremely, extremely conservative. So even if you take a simple fact like that, it's very, very hard to make a comparison across the board. But historically, I think we can look at broad analogies, like you're saying, when we talk about the Enlightenment, the printing press, the internet. I think that those are legitimate in terms of process. But when it comes to individual practices, it's really tough.
It's very, you can't compare. It's really hard to compare it as if, like, to see if Islam is going to follow the same path, because you're talking about the sample size of one religion to see what's happening with the other one. That's not good enough, right? Is the question more about which one of them is more dangerous or costly? Is that what it's coming to? Like, is that what we're talking about? Like,
no, I think he just wants to know if there's a historical way that we can compare. Like, for instance, when he talks to people about Islam, people say, "Well, Christianity has that too," right? Like, if you say, for example, in Islam is very homophobic and they kill gay people, they say, well, Christianity has that too, because actually in the Bible it does say to kill homosexuals. In the Quran it doesn't say that. So yes, people have a point. Like in the Bible it does say that you should stone adulterers to death, but that doesn't exist in the Quran. However, in the Muslim world people do that quite a bit. In the Christian world people don't. So how do you pair it?
So here's what I was saying. By the way, Ali, can you reduce your volume, because I could my audio is going from your headphone to your mic.
I've got one rectangle on my volume thing. But go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what's happening then. But I just want people to understand, when you're comparing the ideologies versus the history, that's completely different, right? So what happened in history when it comes to Christianity and Islam, that's a completely different topic than how Islam and Christianity are different when it comes to their ideology, the scripture, because the scripture and the ideology influences people's behavior, but it's not like people are like robots it's not like a code that you insert and they just follow it, right? How it translates to their behavior is very complicated. But so people that suggest that the Quran is something that Muslims follow word by word, it's not as simple as that. And people that suggest that the Quran has no influence on Muslim behavior, these are two extreme claims, right? But so there's completely separate discussion. When you compare Bible to the Quran, it's completely different when you're comparing people, their history. And another two separate discussions are when you're both Christians and Muslims have really not, most of them have not read their text, right? I was gonna say something that I forgot. Let me see. When it comes to individuals themselves, also you have to separate the ideology from the practice as well, right? Like the way you judge people. But let me think about this. I was gonna say something really cool. I completely fucking forgot about it.
Okay, so think about it. Let me move on while you're trying to recall it. That's good. That works.
Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Okay. No More says, what do you think of Sargon of Akkad?
I like him. Do you like him?
Yeah, so Armin, my introduction to Sargon of Akkad was I ended up on a podcast with him. This guy Habib from he's a good guy. Armin and I both did his podcast as well. He's a Saudi guy, so he was on, and then he said Sargon's coming on, and that's the first time I had a conversation with him, and it was pleasant enough. I actually, in all honesty, there's one video of his I saw that I thought was ridiculous. I think where he was talking about using different kinds of slurs and things like that. I can't even recall it now that much, but so I don't agree with him a whole lot from the stuff that I've seen. I think he's kind of very basic in the stuff he says. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm not familiar with him enough, his stuff enough to.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that he says that I don't like, but overall, I just think that.
Armin had an interview with him on the Atheist Republic podcast, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did. So you guys should go check that out. Check out that conversation.
Yeah. But I think I agree with a lot of his concerns. I don't agree with all of his solutions. I do think that maybe sometimes he exaggerates stuff a bit, but sometimes he doesn't like some stuff that other people think he is exaggerating. I think those are actually big things to be concerned about. I kind of one thing, and again, this is something that we need to separate from each other. When we're talking about people, is it about their views that we don't like, or if something about them personally we don't like, right?
Well, personally, we don't know him, right?
I know. I talked to him personally. I think he's a decent guy, but one thing I know about him is that he has matured a lot more than before. Like, I think given that he was put in a position to have to think about stuff, a lot of the stuff that he says now are a lot more nuanced and calculated than before. He has evolved a lot. He has a lot more sympathy for the people that he disagrees with compared to before, I think. And still, there's a whole bunch of stuff he says that I don't agree with, but I do think it's coming from a genuine concern for stuff that we do need to be concerned about. I don't know.
I haven't really seen. For me, just everything. A lot of the stuff he says is I completely disagree with. He seems like he's very. Huh?
Like what?
Like a lot of stuff he says about Trump, when he said that these are the few things I know. I've only seen
he likes Trump. I don't like
No, not only that, but I think that after Charlottesville thing, when he said that both sides were equivalent and he was trying to explain it, it just feels like I think that he has he's very well informed about a lot of stuff, but he has a very, very superficial view and a superficial way of analyzing things, to my mind, at least from what I.
Well, he used to be a conspiracy theorist. He acknowledged that was bullshit, but I think that conspiracy theory mindset sometimes does make him feel like there are too much. A lot of the problems that he rightfully acknowledges that exist, I think there seems to. He still thinks that there's too much, a lot of planning that goes behind that versus actually trends in people always think that there is like a lot of people seem to think that there is like a conscious effort towards making things shitty when things are getting more shitty, but sometimes it's just there's not that much intelligent planning going behind it, right? So I think some of the time, this whole blaming everything on communism is shit. I don't like communism, but I think that this whole blaming everything on a modern Marxism, I don't really know. Anyways, I don't want to get into that. I don't think
I got a lot of that. I got people like now, and I think I was at the last Sex and Minute thing. Like, this guy came up afterwards. He's like, "Sure, you think religion's bad, but religion, we got so many good things from religion. But what about Marxism? What about Marxism?" And I was like, I knew who he was a fan of. Anyway.
Yeah. No, like, I think like it's kind of trying to group all your enemies into one basket kind of thing, like kind of how like the Muslims try to group all their enemies to Illuminati, Zionists, Satanists, like they're not all the same, but they try to make it all like as if they're the same, like there's this mastermind. I'm not saying like he's that dumb, obviously. I still enjoy I watch his videos. I think he's a very good source of point. Here's what he is. Here's what we give credit to him. There's a lot of problems that most people are not pointing to enough, right? Especially given that people in the UK seem to be having a huge problem. Like, the free speech issue in the UK is a big problem, and not enough people are addressing that. And any voice addressing that is very well, I think should be welcome. Even if you disagree with a whole bunch of other stuff that they say, I think if you watch his videos, he does there are some important news items that not many people are pointing to, and they are true, and he has a huge following, and I'm grateful for him pointing them out. That's what I'm grateful for, right? Anyways, Mike is saying Sargon is a troll. Well, if he's a troll, he's an accidental troll, because I don't think that's his intention.
I think troll might be like, there's a lot of great people who are trolls. I think Sacha Baron Cohen is an incredible troll, and I have a huge amount of respect for it.
I honestly think his intention. I don't think Sargon is a troll. I think his intentions are good, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Shiraz A, good question. Was told by Muslims that jizya was less than zakat. Is that true? So just for background, zakat is what Muslims, one of the 5 pillars or practicing pillars for Shias is it's supposed to be that you pay a percentage of your income to the poor. So it's a tax. This is one of the things that I actually really like about Islam is that people who have it pay a small percentage of their income to support, and that money goes to the poor. So people say that, well, Muslims would pay zakah, and then the non-Muslims, like the Christians and Jews, would pay jizya. So it was equivalent. It was the same thing. It's completely fair. But that's not completely true. So jizya was actually a much heavier tax historically than zakat. There's ways that you can calculate it. The different schools of thought in Sunni Islam, the Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi, and Maliki, they all have different views about this, about how jizya is calculated. And there are different kinds of jizya. It's very, very complicated math. But overall, I think just generally jizya was supposed to be a higher tax than zakah. So historically, I think it was more than I think it was more than twice, but I'm not 100% sure. I can look that up. You guys can look that up. I probably won't follow up on it, but check it out. Armin, anything to say?
No, I was still trying to remember what I forgot to say because it was so good. You guys, it's your last. It was so good. I had such.
It'll have to come back naturally. The more you try to remember, it's not going to come back.
Fuck it.
That's how it is.
All right.
Okay, so Theo again. Do you think the insistence that the Quran can only be understood in Arabic has caused a great deal of it? Let me read that slower. Do you think the insistence that the Quran can only be understood in Arabic has caused a great deal of racism against various non-Arab ethnic groups?
Say that again?
Do you think that the insistence that the Quran can only be understood in Arabic has caused a great deal of racism against various non-Arab ethnic groups? So
I think there is lots of racism against non-Arab group, but I don't think is that the reason? Do you think that's the reason?
I don't think that that's the main reason. I think that one of the reasons may be that the Quran was revealed in Arabic, so God chose the Arabs, Allah chose the Arabs as the elite class. So all of the people who are non-Arab are just whatever. I think that's just one of many reasons why Arabs tend to look down on other.
There's a lot of anti-Arab racism in Iran, and we were told the exact opposite, in my school at least, that we were told that the reason why God brought the Quran in Arabic to the Arabs is because they're the worst of all people, the most barbaric of all people, and God wanted to bring his message where it was needed the most, like to show that even the barbaric Arabs can be saved, so there's hope for all of humanity.
Well,
so
okay.
That was what we were told.
Yeah.
All right.
So Light and Light says hello. Akif Talat saying it's okay. Brian says you need to check out Harris's videos. I got introduced to his content through Abdullah Samir, who is another ex-Muslim content creator. I just want to let you guys know I've reached out to both the Abdullahs, Abdullah Gondal and Abdullah Samir. I'm huge fans of both of them. So if you guys are watching this, just to let you know.
And we should invite Harris as well. Like where is he?
So I haven't seen Harris's videos, but I'm definitely gonna check them out because I think
Harris Sultan, go check out his videos.
Yeah, so Vidu Vids, Harris Sultan, Abdullah, both the Abdullahs. I think you guys are doing amazing stuff. I mean, I'm learning so much just from reading the stuff that you guys post. Abdullah Gondal, I've talked to him, and he's going to be getting back to me soon on a date. We're going to confirm a date to have him on Secular Jihadists on the podcast. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah, one of the Abdullahs disagreed with me burning the Quran, so I want to debate him on that when he comes on the show.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Well, we might do that. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, guys. So Harris was saying that was Australian dollar. Thank you. Yeah. Now, what is your opinion of mythicists, like those who think figures such as Jesus and even Muhammad didn't exist? Interesting or too much of a conspiracy theory? I think there's a difference between people who say Jesus didn't exist. I think a lot of legitimate historians think that.
No, not really.
There are a lot of people I've known.
But most scholars think that it was based on. I mean, I'm not a scholar, so I don't know how to judge this. But most secular non-Christian biblical scholars think it was based on something,
Yeah,
Not
yeah, no,
not
they do.
yeah.
But there are a lot of people who actually say that there is no evidence of it, and some of them are very serious scholars.
Hmm.
But with Muhammad, that's less common. However, I did meet
Yeah.
Ibn Warraq, who was the author of Why I'm Not a Muslim. It was one of the first books I read about ex-Muslims. It was very influential, and I told him so. So I met him at the ex-Muslims of North America event in New York that we both spoke at with Muhammad Syed, and he was talking about some
Yep.
scholars he'd read where he was inclined to consider the idea that Muhammad didn't actually exist. I don't find that as convincing, but I
It's
thought it was
not
interesting nonetheless.
convincing. I mean, to be fair, there's zero direct evidence that Muhammad existed, right? Not like nothing like great people like people like Alexander or people that we know and exist in history. Like we have pretty much direct evidence that Omar existed or Osman existed, right?
Yeah,
There's nothing like this, and but these people are only lived the same time as Muhammad. The thing is that if it would be so bizarre if Muhammad has not existed. I can't take that seriously. And one thing, I mean, maybe I'm wrong because you're right. There is no direct evidence. It's just that so many things happened. I mean, when Muhammad was around, there were some records of the battles that happened from Muhammad's time, but both by the Romans and but both by the Byzantines and by the Persians, which seemed to be suggesting that some of those accounts were accurate. But again, they never mentioned Muhammad. There's a lot of stories a lot of some scholars, for example, like Maher Arar mentioned that there's a lot of stories about Jesus that are so inconvenient that if the story was completely made up, it would not be there, right? And you could point to that to Muhammad as well, right? Like for example, and that again, these are when you don't have absolute evidence, you just use Occam's razor, right? And
hmm
again, this doesn't mean that it's 100% true. It just means something is very likely. And there's a lot of stories when it comes to Muhammad that is like, for example, people ask them for evidence for miracles. And the story is that I'm not gonna give you, like, people like, look, Moses had like fire from coming down from sky, and he spread the sea, and Jesus brought dead from back to living and healed blind people. What you got? Like, give us something. And Muhammad like, hey, look, there's this village over there that they had a prophet, and they asked for evidence, and he gave them evidence, and they still didn't believe. So God fucked them. He destroyed their city, right?
hmm
So I'm not gonna give you miracles because I'm looking out for you. Because if I give you miracles that you still don't believe, then you're really, really screwed, right? So, I mean, if I just making up stories, I could just be like, hey, fire started coming down from sky, right? And in fact, some stories did end up coming later, which was the moon got cut in half, right? But why would that story even be there? Like, there were people that went, their stories are that their people went to the graveyard and they took some bones, and they turned, like, they squished it and turned it into dust and throw it at him, and they told him, like, do you think that's ever going to come back to life? Like, how ridiculous can you be to think that's going to come back to life, right? These stories are there. I mean, there were skeptics at this time, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just there's many examples of this. Like, there's stories of Aisha saying, like, it seems so convenient that every time you need something, there's a Quranic verse coming down exactly when you need it, right? Aisha has mentioned something like that. So Aisha was figuring out that this is all bullshit, right? So these kind of stories, it just seems like, why are they there? It doesn't seem like, if it was all made up, it doesn't seem like these stories would be there. Anyways, but yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So let's go on. Okay, so that was mythicist. That was a good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
More about Imran Khan. Okay, so Cheese asking a question. He says, which Muslim majority country do you think is the most secular? So I'm gonna say right now,
Tunisia.
yeah. So yeah, so Tunisia. I didn't think of that. I was gonna say Tunisia, but I was gonna actually say um, Iran and Turkey. I know that
What?
Turkey is getting like the
Wait, the most
leadership is getting a
secular?
little insane.
The most secular? You're saying Iran?
No, I'm the Muslim majority. We're not talking about the leadership. We're talking about the people. Which do you
Oh.
think? Which Muslim majority country do you think? The way I'm interpreting this question is that which Muslim majority country do you think is the most secular in terms of the people there? So I would say that Iran is probably one of them, and I would say
No.
Turkey is another one, and Tunisia. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Tunisia for sure, but I would say with Iran, you might get that impression from the protests and stuff. And a lot of people, a lot of secular people, upper class, middle class, secular, liberal people might want from Iran might also have that impression because a lot of people live in their own social bubbles. But I could tell you, Iran is still very religious. I mean, even living in Iran, I didn't know this, and but Iran is still very religious. It's not like a lot of liberal Iranians would try to give the impression that it's just the government. It's only the government. It's not the people. But that's not true. There's at least 20 million people. First of all, most Iranians are religious, and but just because they're religious, that doesn't mean that they're pro-government. A lot of Iranians are very anti-religious, so much so that they would wish all the religious people to die or something. Like some of them, at least, not all of them. Again, but the thing is that there's a whole bunch of different groups of people in Iran. It's very complicated. You have non-religious people that are very anti-government, very anti-religious. You have non-religious people, surprisingly, that are pro-government. Go figure that one out. I could give you why, but that would be another podcast. You have very religious people that are anti-government. And you have very religious people in Iran, a lot of religious people in Iran that are pro-government that will die for the government. It could be 10 to 20 million people in Iran that see Khamenei as like a pure religious leader. It's not an insignificant thing. And again, a lot of liberal Iranians will tell you otherwise. But that's because they've been so involved with anti-religious movement. They've been so involved with anti-government movement. Even from Iran, they all live in their own social bubbles. I mean, I didn't know about how diverse Iran was until I went to Tehran University in Iran. I always thought that the religious people are mostly just government officials. But it's not like that. It's very diverse, very diverse. So okay. I don't think it's secular. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's just keep moving because we'll keep this going till midnight.
Okay,
that's
good,
okay,
good.
Armin?
Okay.
I mean, midnight as in my time.
Okay. Wait, what time is it there?
Over here, it's like almost 11:30.
Oh shit. All right, I want to go more though. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions. That's why I want to keep going.
Okay. All right, go.
Well, you love the. Okay, Kyle says, "Love the secular jihadists. Keep it up, guys. Thank you very much." What do you think of atheists? Okay, I don't know what that means. Let's just move on.
Wait, no, atheism is unstoppable?
No, no more is saying, what do you think of atheist?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know what that means either. I think you know what we think of atheists in general.
Yeah, we're atheists. So, yeah.
So Harris is saying, so you think the military makes the economic policies of Pakistan? I think that when it comes to foreign policy, they like to have control. I think that when it comes to domestic policies, they just let the civilian guy do that, like deal with the poverty and all the domestic stuff, everything else. But when it comes to the foreign policy, relationship with the U.S., the whole Taliban thing, the relationship with India, wanting to make Kashmir a priority, all that stuff, I think that the military likes to have control, and if the civilian leader goes against them, they generally cut them out. That's been the typically the precedent. So let's move on. Why is that? Okay, some of this is just conversation. So Lois Edwards, and we love Lois Edwards. We love you, Lois. Sorry about changing the subject, but there is something wrong with the Vancouver Playhouse webpage for fleeing fundamentalism.
Oh yeah, it's been postponed.
It's been postponed. Okay, so for the fleeing fundamentalism event has been postponed. Lois, I'll let Armin talk about that later when he does the announcement. Yeah, Armin, that's good.
Just just look at Penguin Philosophy's Twitter and Facebook page, or send them an email. Like, I don't want to. I'm just the director of media there. I'm not responsible for. But yeah, just keep on. The updates are going to be. You know what? Subscribe to the. No. Yeah, just send an email to Penguin Philosophy, but it's been postponed. It's not on the same day anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharif's party is actually in power. More about Pakistan. So I'll just come to something that we haven't really covered. Okay, people always. Okay, this why so religious is still going on about religion with conservative. Referring to all these comment, why so religious? Maybe Turkey is the most secular. Casey Atheist is saying hello, Casey. That's great.
What
Shia revival. Okay, no, that's you. Okay, another question. Beach Price. Anjum Chaudhry will be released in a few months, and his followers are returning to Speaker's
Corner. We got
Corner.
an 80-pound super chat. Can you believe that? That's amazing by Mike.
Oh wow. Okay, does that mean we go to him first?
Well, yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. So he's saying I disagree with some opinions. So with this donation, I'd like to apply for Google Hangouts with you both and some live chat regulars. Absolutely, Mike. Of course, we would love that. I saw the picture of you hanging out with Armin and Travis and all these guys like in London. I was feeling jealous. I was like, I wish I'd met you. So yeah, let's do that. Just message us and we'll set it up.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really good plan, and thank you very much. As usual, and thank you for all of your questions. You always ask amazing questions, generally, when we're doing our episodes anyway, so I am already a fan. So thank you. Okay, so Beej Price is saying, again, Anjum Chaudhry will be released in a few months, and his followers are returning to Speaker's Corner in England. How best to deal with them?
Wait, what was the question?
You know Anjum Chaudhry, the loony Islamic guy in England?
Yes.
From Al Muhajirun?
Yeah.
He's going to be released within a few months, and his followers are returning to Speaker's Corner in England. How best to deal with them? I have an answer to this.
Go on.
Mock them. Go laugh at them. The one thing, here's the thing with these authoritarian types, whether it's, Islamic fundamentalists or a guy like Kim Jong-un, you can write all the op-eds, you can have all your serious, angry counter-protests, and you give them what they want. What they want to do is they want to get a reaction out of you that is, serious, because if it's serious, then they feel legitimate. If you write serious op-eds about Kim Jong-un and criticize him in the paper, he's going to feel like, okay, well, I've got status here. I'm equivalent to everybody's talking to me like I'm a real thing. But when Seth Rogen makes a movie called The Interview with him getting his head blown off, he loses his shit and tries to launch a cyber attack in the US, because that is the kind of thing that gets them. Nothing pisses off jihadists more than cartoons. You know that. Satire and mockery is the stuff that works. There are people who don't deserve to be engaged with. I'm really sorry. I know this sounds shitty, but if you're a flat earther in 2018, you don't deserve to be engaged with. You can't sit down and have a debate. That debate was settled a very long time ago. It is no longer a debate. But people with dumb ideas, I think, should be made to feel like their ideas are dumb, and it should be done through satire and mockery. So if you see Anjum Chaudhry and his guys over there, and if you really, really want to give them the opposite of reaction of what they want you to come out, they want you to counter-protest, they want you to be serious and say, Muslims out of this country and all this stuff, and do all of that other, Nigel Farage type stuff and be all angry. That's what they want you to do. But just go up there, laugh at them, set up a thing across for it, have like a beer thing, have a whole bunch of rainbow flags, put up your Allah is gay signs, ex-Muslims go out there and just have a nice comedy night right there and enjoy the show. Look at it as a spectacle, because that's what they deserve. That's my answer to it. Armin, I don't know if you have.
No, that was good. Let's go to the next. There's a whole bunch of other questions, so let's go.
All right. The Quran says not to break into sects, and that if they do, they become polytheistic. So there are no Muslims. the Quran doesn't. I don't know where the Quran said that. Why so religious? I don't know the kind of stuff you're writing, but I mean, thank you for your perspective. Why so religious says I don't believe in God. I'm very happy about that. That's great. I'm glad you don't. Um, what is the link between, this is from Brian, what is the link between socialism, communism, and the Iranian Revolution? There you go. That's an Armin question. Armin, try to be brief if you can.
Okay, so when the Islamic Revolution was happening, it was originally movement about equality and a whole bunch of communists, the Tudeh and the MEK, the Mujahideen Khalq, were basically a communist movement that were the main force behind what eventually became the Islamic Revolution. But basically, I mean, the thing is that whatever revolution you wanted to have in Iran, the mullahs were the main sources of, you know, you didn't have internet and stuff there, but you had like people showing up to mosques and being able to give speeches every Friday to people. That was a very powerful force. Like that, you know, that people. You couldn't have a political movement without having the mullahs backing it up. So, but a lot of the problems people had with the government at that time had to do with regards to equality issues and economic issues. So, and you know, Marxism and, you know, communism was becoming very popular at that time, and Iran wasn't immune from that. So when the revolution happened, this is something that is not written in our history books. This is something that we had to learn later. We thought it was entirely an Islamic from the get-go, but no, it was a union between these communists and Islamists, which is actually the same thing that kind of happened in Iraq, and it's now it keeps happening in Iraq up to today, which is so bizarre. Like you see communists and mullahs uniting and becoming each other's allies. What these communists assumed is that after the revolution there's going to be multiple parties and they're going to have a power share with the mullahs. There's going to be an Islamic party and a communist party. But what Khomeini made it seem like that's what's going to happen. But what happened after was Khomeini started killing them after the revolution in masses. In like, it's one of the one part of Iran's history that not enough people talk about. I think I forgot the numbers, but it's huge. The number of people that were executed in a very short amount of time, like the thousands of people that were executed, is one of the massacres in history that doesn't get enough attention. But they were all part of the MEK, which is the Mujahideen Khalq, which is such a weird cult. It was basically the cult that was created after that. With the MEK right now is still active, by the way, outside of Iran, in Paris, by Mariam Rajavi. It was a mix of communism and Islam. It's such a weird, toxic mix. And there was different elements with there. Some of them focused more on communism, some of them focused more on Islam. But it was a main opposition to the mullahs after the revolution back then, and it's the main opposition today, and it's very much hated by most Iranians. If there's only two things that Iranians can agree on, both the religious and the non-religious, both the pro-government people and the non-government people. Is one thing that unites most Iranians with each other is one is their hatred for Saudi Arabia, and the second one is their hatred for the MEK. So I don't really know if they have any hope for ever becoming a major influence in Iran, because they're so hated. But they're the most funded one right now. They're the most organized one right now. There were always something that the Islamic Republic hated, and the people in Iran also hated. But whatever toxic ideology they had, I don't know if their massacre was justified. Because I mean, I know it wasn't justified because it was crazy. It was.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think like, oh, well, they were fucking communists or whatever, but no, I mean, these were kids. Like these were so many. I mean, they also carried out a lot of terrorist attacks, but this was insane. Um, yeah, but I don't know. This is very complicated. But yeah, who's asking this? These people. Is Brian asking this, right?
Yeah, it's Brian asking this.
So. Yeah, but it doesn't suggest at all that the current Islamic Republic has anything communist about it at all. Like just because they kind of backstab the communists, right? You use them, they united with them, but when they got into power, they started rounding them up and executing them. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. From Islam, Zionism, regressive left, alt-right, and geopolitics. A great name. I love it. I think there are verses and or stories in the Bible that encourage Christians not to reject their faith no matter what. That would explain that beheading thingy. Well, yeah, I would assume that there is stuff in the Bible that says don't not believe this. So, yeah. And apostasy and blasphemy, these have been things that have been in all the Abrahamic religions. And in fact, when we talk about reform is just a synonym for heresy. It used to be called heresy before. Anyway, let's move on. So we're going to just do quick hits. Exponent says, I've been wanting to travel in the Middle East for many years, but I'm rationally afraid. It's a shame that people still deny that beliefs have real world consequences. You're absolutely right. And I think this is something that people don't realize, that just traveling to certain countries, you can't. You're restricted from certain parts of the world. And this is specifically a consequence of people who reject Islam, unfortunately. Armin, Atheist Republic. Okay, we covered this. Brian is saying, Ali loves left-wing Jews. What would Muhammad think? Yeah. Okay. Beach.
I like it when people try to put us against each other. A lot of people are like, oh, Armin, Ali is a social justice warrior. And people come to you and they go, oh, Ali, Armin is like a right-wing something. I don't know what.
Yeah, the whole recent, I don't know.
People are like, people tell me, how could I work with you? And people tell you, how could you work with me? So it's
like, how could you work with a guy who defends incest? I'm like, well...
I'm surprised that most of the stuff that I've been dealing with in the past week, nobody is asking about that.
And actually, we talked to, you guys haven't heard the episode. I think the public hasn't, but we talked to Matt Dillahunty about this too.
Yeah, Matt Dillahunty agreed with me.
We'll let you listen to it then.
Yeah.
Picthal. Okay, he's talking about Picthal translation. Keep going. Some of these are just comments. No More is saying, what do you think of Tommy Robinson?
Well, but before that, somebody asked about atheism is unstoppable. Nobody. Do you saw that? Do you see that?
No.
I just wanted to give it. I'm a fan of Devon Tracy and his videos. I know it gets a lot of shit, but I'm a fan. And yeah, I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. So yeah, go on.
Oh, okay.
And so Tommy Robinson, I think this is something we disagree on. I'm a fan of Tommy Robinson as well, but you're against. You're not.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
I do want to have. We both do agree that we want to have him on the podcast whenever we can.
Right.
That's something that we would be interested in. I just don't know if he's up for it. But
he's in prison right now, so he's not up for it. But once he gets out,
sure.
but yeah, I don't think I haven't yet seen anything that he said that could be categorized as racist. Yet.
Okay.
You don't want to get into that, no? Right.
Sorry. No, you were saying you haven't seen anything with counter. No, I actually did see stuff that I think is like that video, the stuff that he said about Sadiq Khan, that that you're a part of an invasion to this country. This is not your country. This is not your city.
Well, I mean, okay, so he said you're not part of this country as a response to him acting like this was. He's representing the whole country.
But he also said that you were part of an invasion to this country. So that's why I don't buy the explanation. But it's
wait, but there is an invasion of Islamic ideology invasion of UK.
But Sadiq Khan was born and raised in.
But
in
did
London.
He say
Sadiq Khan does not represent Islamic ideology? He doesn't represent Islamic ideology. There's people he
But
worked with Muslim groups that included Islamist groups, just like
right,
Majid Nawaz did. A lot of people had those connections. I mean, that happens. I mean, you
right.
could, if I
Okay, so
ran for office, you
wait,
would
did he say
find,
did he say that you're part of this invasion? But
yeah,
okay,
he
so
said, this is not your country, this is not your city. You were part of an invasion into this country,
right.
Sadiq.
So if
It's our country. I'm quoting verbatim exactly what he said.
yeah, so
Oh,
this is
and then he
something.
also said later on, he also said that if you want to go, he said, Donald Trump, if you want to come here and you want to see real British people, you need to go outside London and see places where the rest of us live. Like London, there aren't even any real British people there anymore. And he was talking about the minority. He's a, so,
Okay, if he said real British people, I would be against that.
yeah.
But if he said that this is not your country, the thing is that this is what you tell politicians that act like you're, because politicians are supposed to act like your representatives, not act like as if they own the fucking country, right? So if somebody tries to say like, "Oh, you're not welcome in this country," to somebody, you're like, "Yeah, you don't get to speak on behalf of all of us, right?
No,
This is not
sure,
your
but
this is not your country." But
that was his defense of it. But Armin, I'm telling you, that's what I know. All of these arguments. That was his defense. He released a long video afterwards. People told me to watch it. I watched that whole video. I put up the full clip of what he said, and everything. I went through all of it. But I think that in the other video, he was trying to cover up for what he said before. And
right.
I'm pretty convinced of that. And the thing with Sadiq Khan is like, out of all the people, there are people. I mean, I don't agree with Sadiq Khan completely. I think the shit he said about ex-Muslims being house Muslims and all that stuff, which he apologized for later.
Who
Was
apologized?
It's Sadiq Khan, but when he was running, right?
Right.
So he worked with a lot of. There was criticism about him, but overall,
So that would make
he has
him part.
been
That would make
he.
him part of the invasion, wouldn't it? If he worked with those people.
If he, no, it doesn't make him part of the. Why would it make him part of the invasion?
No, here's the thing. Whether let's say that he's not, okay? But if you consider him
Wait,
part,
what's the invasion? What is he?
is
We're not talking about Islam coming into the country. He's not a theocrat. He was
no,
more secular than Majid
I
Nawaz.
understand that. My point is that if your disagreement is that he's not part of the invasion, that disagreement, as valid as it might be, does not make him a racist, because if there's a misunderstanding of whether or not he's part of the invasion or not, it would be about him being a Muslim, not about him being whatever his race he is.
I've heard that's what he said too in his follow-up video.
Right.
I'm just not convinced. It feels too interpretive to me. It's
It's
almost like
wait. It
I'm
actually
saying,
seems more interpretive to make it suggest otherwise, because there's nothing
no,
about
no,
his
no.
race. It's just about Islam.
Let me put it this way:
Right.
if an Islamic guy had said that about non-Muslims, nobody would give them the amount of leeway and interpretive sort
Like
of.
what? Give an example. Like he said what? Like a Muslim guy said what?
Yeah, for Muslim guy. Okay, so this guy he's basically telling a guy who was born and raised in London as much as Tommy Robinson was, exactly the same way, born and raised in the UK, that it's not your country, it's not your capital. You were part of an invasion into this country. It's our country, Sadiq. And Trump, when you
All
come
right.
here,
Let's think about this. Like let's say if some white nationalist guy said that immigrants are not welcome here, right? And a Muslim, born and raised Muslim from UK said, "This is not your country. This is our country." I would be like, "Yeah, you're right." He can't just say it's everyone's. It's all of your countries. He can't just say that this is that white nationalist guy.
So we're going in circles. That wasn't all. When that's combined with the whole invasion into our country thing, completely changes the context. That's
No,
what
but the invasion of the
we'll
country
watch
part,
that.
I
Let's
agree
not-
with. Okay,
Huh?
okay. But the
Yeah, let's
invasion.
not get into this too much.
Okay,
But
okay.
I'm pretty convinced. Not only this, but like in the past with other stuff that he's done. Like I think he is. A lot of this is sort of ethno-nationalism masquerading as.
Okay. Whatever. Even if he is a racist, he's definitely not an ethno-nationalist. In fact, ethno-nationalists hate him.
Oh, I actually don't. I don't think he's necessarily racist, but I do think he's an ethno-nationalist.
Oh no, he's definitely not an ethno-nationalist.
Okay, so we disagree. That's why we should have him on the podcast, and we'll talk
Okay,
about
because actually ethno-nationalists specifically hate him because he's not an ethno-nationalist.
it. Well, not all ethno-nationalists hate him.
Well, the ones that
There's
do
many-
hate him.
He's been on many sort of white supremacist podcasts and things like that. He's done that. Like there's.
All right, let's see if we can get him on. He's hard to get as a guest, but let's see if we can get him on. Okay.
So in any case, let's move on. What do you think of people asking about other people? This is not my favorite topic, but it's okay. But patrons are asking this, so we're gonna ask, or at least fans. What do you think of Paul Joseph Watson? This is a guy who works with Alex Jones on InfoWars.
Oh, he tweeted about me. He covered one of my tweets in his video. Did you see that?
Oh, he's retweeted me too. There are things like, so here's the thing, right? A lot of times there will be people we completely disagree with and even despise who will align with us on certain issues. And that's just part of what happens when you do this kind of work.
He has some really good videos and some really bad ones.
Yeah. And I think he also perpetuated, InfoWars are the people who obviously they perpetuated the Pizzagate thing and said that Sandy Hook was a conspiracy.
Wait, he said that? Did he say that?
He's Alex Jones's right-hand man. He works for InfoWars.
I know Alex Jones said that, but did he say that?
No, he didn't. Well, he said that he did the Pizzagate stuff. I don't think he said the Sandy Hook thing. But yeah, he's never actually, I mean, it's part of the same.
His videos are funny and there's a lot of good points in them, but obviously, and there's some conspiracy theory ones that are absolute bullshit. Yeah, but
there's a lot of great things Trump says. There are a lot of nice things.
There are not that many great things that Trump says. But I don't. You have to remind me about which ones. But the thing is that we can. This is what comes. This is what when it comes to judging people. This is why it's hard to judge people completely. Because they come with a lot of good points and a lot of bad points. It's easier to judge the point that they're making rather than the entire package, right? I don't like the fact that he's now ending his videos with selling bullshit supplements. He's now going full Alex Jones. Yeah, yeah.
But he wasn't. Monopolist is doing that too.
Oh fuck! Yeah, I actually saw that. They should if they want that's fucking bullshit. They just stop doing that. Just get Patron.
Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, has started a Patreon where she cures depression and a bunch of ailments with diet alone.
Right.
And Jordan Peterson has been sending his patrons to her, and she says that he is on a lot of her diet only products, and a consultation with her. You can get a consultation with her, Armin, for $120 per half hour on our Patreon. So, I mean, this stuff is happening. A lot of these, it's not just about ideas all the time.
Right.
Okay. So, lots of buffering. People are talking about buffering, so there's apparently technical issues.
If there's a buffering issue, pause your video for a little bit and then play it again. That should help.
Okay, let's go with let's go. We've got 15 minutes, so guys, I'm going to be selective with some of the stuff that we haven't really covered, and that's not too granular, and also with some of the newer people as well. Sunny is saying Habib always tweets food pictures. I love it. I think it's great. It's not very good for the third love handle I have, but yeah, it's good. It's a lot of fun. He tweets some delicious photos. And he's a great guy. I like him a lot.
Go next.
Yeah, there's a lot of Sargon stuff.
Oh, by the way, Sargon just had a podcast episode with Travis Pangburn, which is going to be released soon as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, so here's a good question. Theo, what do you think of Jordan Peterson's assertion that genuine atheists would likely be murderers? What do you think? Are you a genuine atheist, Armin, or are you a murderer? Oh, sorry. You'd be both, right?
Right.
So are you so maybe you're just a closet theist.
Yeah, maybe. So basically what he's acknowledging is that if it wasn't for a belief in God, he would be going around and killing people. That would make him I think he needs to see a psychologist if that's his problem. Like
he's a psychologist.
No, he needs to see a better one. Because he's saying that if he did not, first of all, he doesn't believe in God based on his definition of God, right? So that means that he's a.
You mean the metaphorical substrate?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can't deal with the word salad anymore. I'm tired of.
Like I asked Matt Dillon. How's your metaphorical substrate? He's like, I'm sitting on it.
So here's the thing. So atheist means somebody that doesn't believe in God. And if Jordan Peterson's definition of God is some word salad of different things that have nothing to do with each other, right? So like the greatest value that you could achieve, I don't know, whatever bullshit. But if he actually means atheist by what we mean by atheist, then he also is an atheist because he doesn't believe in a God as like a conscious creator kind of thing. So that would make him a murderer. If he's talking about an atheist as not to believe in the God that he believes in, then even Christians are atheists because they don't. I mean, if you ask Christians and Muslims what they mean about God, their definitions is not the same as Jordan Peterson. So I think the only people that are not atheists would be Jordan Peterson fans. I actually no. He would say that we do believe in his God, we just don't know it.
Yeah,
but it's just too much.
We've talked so much about that. I just
you
for
picked
the longest time
I
thought he was actually. I thought Jordan Peterson was too smart, too intelligent to be an atheist, but now I realize that I do think he's religious. Take that to mean what you want. Devon is my homeboy, helped by luxurious butts. It's always good to get a luxurious.
Let me just tell you something about Jordan Peterson. As much as I'm against his views, as much as I think he represents a very dangerous comeback of Christianity, he's a very nice person. Okay, like personally, he's one of the nicest people I've met, especially when it comes to the way he treats his fans, the way that he goes out of his way to communicate with them, the way that he's so genuine, like the way that he looks at them when they're talking and shakes their hand, makes them feel very important. He actually broke security protocol in Vancouver to go outside to meet the people that were there. The more I meet and the people that I disagree with, the more I get reminded of how important it is to separate fighting ideas from fighting people, because some of these people are very genuinely very nice people.
I think that's a really important point, in the sense that when you are sitting down, you're actually talking to people. Right. The way that things come around. Like I had this conversation with a Jordan Peterson fan back at XMNA. He's a really nice guy, right. And I had a good conversation with him. And actually, what's interesting is people say the same thing about Trump. When Trump was first running, people were shocked because, Keith Olbermann, of all people, the guy who hates him, lived in one of Trump's buildings or was visiting it. And he's like, I always loved the guy because he was always very friendly. In person, he would never talk about himself. It'd be more like, I read your book. It's the most amazing book I ever read. He'd make you feel like the most important person in the room. People really, really liked him, apparently, in person. And it's a very different thing, like when it comes to public and his ideas and stuff, too. So people are often very different than they are privately than they are publicly. Okay.
I mean, even if they privately still have those bullshit views. Mm-hmm. I'm just separating them as individuals than their views. Yeah,
it does help to meet people. I mean, there are people you're sparring with online, whatever, it's always good to get together and just go get a coffee or a beer or something. Yeah. Because you might. It's a completely different dynamic.
Yeah.
Sagan worshipper. Why does Pangburn think they need to middleman Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson? Huh?
Middleman? What do you mean?
Okay, this guy is not a fan of Travis Pangburn. Middleman, I don't know what that means. Let's move on. We don't have a lot of time. Okay. How do you guys think global literacy would influence the Islamic world, and what can current governments do since populations in developed countries also have issues with literacy? I have a simple solution for this. My mother is a professor of education. She worked on a project with Christian missionaries in Pakistan called All Mothers Educated Now. Amen. Educate the mothers, empower the women. It's directly correlated with poverty alleviation. It's directly correlated with better literacy. An educated mother is never going to leave her own daughter uneducated. An uneducated mother may choose to let her son be educated and leave her daughter be just like her and get married and have loads of babies. But women who are educated tend not to do that. So educating women and empowering women and giving women reproductive choice, I think, is the number one thing. It's a noticeable, overt, blatant difference between the Islamic world and the rest of the world. And that is one thing, like once we overcome that, I think that is one of the biggest things that will also not only improve literacy, but improve economics in those countries, improve the education in those countries and improve population control. That's my view. Armin, anything else you have to add to that?
No, just the more educated people are, the more access they have to competing ideologies, and there are not that many ideologies that are as bad as Islam. So the more access they have to competing ideologies, the more influenced they are by better ideas.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to go with the questions now because there's a lot of comments.
Yeah.
So I hate to sound conspiratorial, this is from Exponent, but do you guys sense a campaign of vocal anonymous trolls smearing people like Sam Harris, etc., and get retweeted by bigoteers like Mangoes, etc.?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. I think there's just Twitter is just one of those
You're
places where people
underestimating how many dumb people are out there. You don't need conspiracies.
Yeah, you can't. I get people send me messages all the time. Look, this person said this about you. This person said that about you. I recently had an interview that was published in Quillette, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It was done by the philosopher, the Belgian philosopher Martin Baudry, who I have a lot of respect for, and he's a good friend of mine too. And people were just saying, "Why are you in Quillette?" And people started. Someone was saying that Claire Lehman, who runs Quillette, is a race realist or a far right, whatever, and that's just completely not true. I think Quillette is a great online magazine. They print like a really good stuff that you wouldn't get anywhere. I also like Vox. I like, there's a lot of other stuff I like. I don't know. People will try to label you SJW or right wing and all the stuff. It's fun. Sometimes people are. I get involved in it too. It's a lot of fun to spar, but I don't think we should take it seriously.
Whenever you see trends, it's kind of tempting to think that there's some intelligent plan behind it sometimes, and this is something both the left and the right does. Like a lot of people on the left think that there's a conspiracy, and a lot of people on the right think that there's this Marxist planned conspiracy, or both sides think there's a globalist conspiracy. But usually there are just trends that just they're like, the explanations are not for it is not as planned as you assume they are. But go on. Yeah, people like to assume agency where there is none usually. Go on.
And I also want to, because I get asked about Mangoes a lot, and Mangoes, I was good friends with Mangoes before. And here's the thing, I'm just going to make this really quick. I am disappointed in the fact that her thing now is just against people. You know how they say great minds talk ideas, and then average minds talk about people all the time. It's just, oh, this person said this, that person said that. And, the thing is, I agree with her on so many other things, and I think she did such amazing work before when she was doing her blog, and it wasn't just about who said what. So I feel like that's a deterioration. I hope it comes back, but I found it really disappointing. More about jizya.
Yeah.
Move on. Okay, more questions. Ali, what do you think about what's going on in Pakistan right now? So we covered that with Imran Khan, but he's asking about Jibran Nasser. Jibran Nasser is, I've written this, I think he should be the future of Pakistan. He's a very brave,
if he can stay alive.
Huh?
If he can remain alive.
I hope he can remain alive. He's actually, my wife knows him personally. I don't know if he wants people to know that. I think he's okay with it, though, because I think he's the only one who's actually fighting for secularism and pluralism, secularism as in separation of religion and state, and rights for minorities there. I mean, he's just a total revolutionary, and to do that in a country like that is it's insanely courageous.
Yeah.
So I support him 100%. I wish there was a better way that I could show the support. Secular jihadists, have you guys watched any videos of Rationality Rules? He has great takedowns of Peter Peterson. Overall, some great videos on atheism. You guys heard it here. Rationality Rules. Check it out. I'll check it out when I get the chance. No more is, why did you? Okay, all right, hold on. He's saying, why did you make this channel? I don't know.
For enlightenment in the Muslim world. It's in the subtitle.
Listen to the beginning, the very first episode of this year.
Yeah.
Very first episode, and you'll get an idea of why.
Yeah, what's the title of that? Do you know?
I think it's called the Kicking Off the Year with Iranian
Revolution.
Something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the first episode of 2018, and also the second one with Sarah Hayder. Benjamin, is there any merit to the accusation that conflicting geopolitical ambitions, unintended consequences at the hands of the superpowers, and revivalist efforts by Qutb, Maududi, etc. is to blame?
For what?
Is to blame for what?
Okay, next question until we find out.
Yeah, sorry, we only have like 3-4 minutes right now. Okay. More Tommy Robinson. Aisha is the first ex-Muslim.
Yeah, I mean, Aisha actually kind of copied Muhammad after he died. He was like every time she needed something, Aisha is one of the major sources of hadith. So every time she needed a hadith, she would be like, "Oh, I remember Muhammad said this. I remember Muhammad said just the way Muhammad said. Oh, I remember a verse came down from no, not remember. A verse came down from Allah whenever Muhammad needed something. Aisha basically kind of used the same trick as making up hadith whenever it was politically in her favor. So I think I really like, the more I read Aisha's stories, the more I like her. Like after like Muhammad died, like she took full control. She became like a military person. I mean, she made some major mistakes, but she took control of this. Like she tried to wage war against Ali. Like she was politically savvy. She was at age 18. I don't know. I think she's a very interesting story. There needs to be a movie about her.
I think someone is working on one.
Like a real, like
supposed to be a book,
like an unbiased movie about. I don't think anybody. By the way, she has hate Aisha. She has hate Aisha, and I was so surprised when I came to Canada to know that Sunnis actually love her and call her the mother of the faithful, the al-Mu'mineen. Like, what the fuck, you guys like her? Like, she attacked Ali, like she attacked your fourth Khalifa and she has first Imam. So like, how could you? Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, so 4 more minutes, guys. I'm gonna I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to be selective, so some of your questions are gonna get left out. I apologize for that. I'm just trying to choose the unique ones we haven't covered now. So Crypta saying, Ali, what do you think about the next election in Canada? Do you think Liberal will win again? Asking because of Conservative wave in Ontario. There was a Conservative wave in Ontario. They won. The Liberals lost really badly. I think they deserved the loss. They went overboard. The Liberals have become too much. The Ontario Liberal Party, that is, has become too much of a top-down kind of approach. I have a good friend, Maher Khan, who's part of the Liberal Party, and he actually wrote an op-ed about this as well. They've become too top-down. They've forgotten the way that they used to get support from the grassroots. They spent like crazy. It was becoming impossible for people in the province to save. And unfortunately, the alternative is terrible.
Yeah.
The progressive conservative is terrible. Doug Ford is a complete moron. And he's rolling back. He's taken everything backwards. But I really think that the Ontario Liberal government had a lot to do with that. They're really, a lot of the blame goes to them. I mean, the loss to get just like what I think 7 seats in the whole thing is just absolutely insane. Right. And they're really going to have to fix things to be able to do it. The NDP, which is another sort of liberal party.
Next question. Yeah, next question.
Anyway. But as for the general election in Canada, I don't think it's going to be as bad. Okay. Is there... Okay, no, this is the same question. Okay, different question. Chi is asking about Malaysia. But that's a big conversation.
Yeah,
Chi, I would refer you to a previous episode that we did on Malaysian atheists.
We need to invite somebody from Malaysia because the recent elections has changed a lot of things. So yeah.
Chi, email us.
Yeah. No, we need to have like somebody. We need to have an entire episode about that. But go next. Somebody's asking what does Sam Harris
Islam's I'm agnostic on flat/round Earth assertions. Don't see why I should believe one way or another, both, since I haven't read everything on the subject. Am I the only one here with this view? I really hope so. I mean, I love you. No. Thank you for supporting us. But
okay, to be fair to this person, if you haven't read up on, okay, here's the thing. Let's say something is very obvious to us. For example, evolution is fact. Okay, there's too much evidence for it not to be true. But if somebody has not ever studied it, and they're agnostic about it, I think that's fair. If they've never studied it, I mean, in fact, it would be weird if they accept it without studying it. Do you know what I mean? If somebody hasn't been gone to school, hasn't been educated on it, like I talked to somebody that didn't know anything about evolution, and I was or Big Bang Theory, and I was trying to explain this to her. And she was being agnostic about the Christianity and what the preachers told me, and I was telling this is how things work, and she was like, "Well, you know that, but I don't know that because I haven't studied it. And if I agree with you, it's just like agreeing with the preachers." And I'm like, "Well, that's
you're
fair."
Very charitable. I think evolution, the Big Bang are very, very different from flat versus round Earth.
No, but think about somebody that hasn't no schooling, has never.
But if you're called Islam, Zionism, Reg Left, Alt Right, if you know all of that stuff, you should know whether the Earth is round or not. You read about it. If you haven't read that, then forget about reading about the regressive left. First, figure out if the Earth is round or not, and then later we'll move on.
You underestimate how much lack of education is out there, I think.
No, I don't underestimate. I just judge it. Oh. Yeah. I see. I can be an asshole too.
Okay, but it's never too late to pick up. It's never too late if you don't know things, don't get discouraged. It's never too late to pick up things.
I'll give you that.
Okay.
Abdul Moiz. Oh, sorry, I read the full name. Abdul. I'm a big fan of your podcast, but please improve your audio bitrate. You know what? We were talking about that today. We have to figure out. We used to record on Zencastr before. Unfortunately, Zencastr's got a lot of issues right now, so we had to go ahead and move to a different format where we had to get the audio from. Anyway, it was complicated, so the sound quality.
Give us solutions. If you have any suggestions as for solutions, please give that to us as well. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So let's move on. We've covered this. Okay, more about other, I guess, YouTubers. Oh shit, Duckford. Okay. Can you recommend a site for hijabi porn? I know there's a star called Mia Khalifa. I know about her. That's, I think, MIA.
I don't get hijabi porn. There's some kinds of hijabi.
Mia Khalifa. There was a whole interview with her. No, she does.
I know. No, I'm just saying. Like I like some certain kinds of hijab just because I grew around them. It seems cute, but if it's half, it's just bizarre. It's weird. I think like it's half hijab and half not hijab. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So. Okay. Let's make this.
The last question.
We're going to do two last questions. I want to end on a lighter note. So Jim is asking, if you burned a Quran 10 years ago, do you think there would have been a much more deal, I guess a bigger deal, than you got this week?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It would be like the Salman Rushdie of the time, wouldn't I?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. There's an enlightenment happening. Things are changing. Okay, then final question. Do you guys like Christopher Hitchens' favorite drink, Johnny Walker Black Label with Perrier and no ice? You know what? I haven't tried it. But this year, I think it was December when he died. I don't know when his death anniversary is. But when it happens, I am going to try that. Johnny Walker Black Label with Perrier and no ice.
Somebody's asking what Sam Harris smells like.
Sam Harris smells like? I've never really noticed. Have you noticed?
No. I'm going to meet him again in Sydney, so I'll let you know.
Oh, yeah. Now he's going to... I want everybody who meets him to go and report on this. Sam's gonna have a lot of fun now. Everybody's gonna come sniffing. He's like, hey, why is everybody sniffing me? What's going on? It's gonna be great. Everybody go and smell Sam Harris and then report back and tell us what he smells like. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Brian, a lot of people think genuine people are trolls. Brian is saying like flat earthers are the best trolls. I think people are underestimating how much ignorance is out there. Like,
I don't think troll is I don't think it's a weird word. I don't really like the word because I think of myself as a troll. Like
but troll is on purpose.
Yeah, on purpose.
Yeah, but flat earthers, they're not trolls. They actually believe they genuinely believe they're nonsense. Yeah.
There was a tweet once, I think Richard Dawkins said that anybody who doesn't believe in evolution in the 21st century, I'm paraphrasing, is either ignorant, stupid, or insane. And I actually think that was a factual statement because either you're ignorant, that means you don't know about evolution,
right.
Or you're stupid, which means you know that evolution, you understand it, but you still don't believe it, which means that you are foolish and stupid. That's what the word means. Or you are insane, as in you don't have the mental faculties. You're not completely in order to understand.
But I want to defend all those three groups. I think that's
No, nobody's saying they're bad.
I know.
Just calling them what they are.
I know, and I agree with that statement 100%. I just want to say that none of those three should be seen as an insult. When it comes to ignorance, you have to understand that a lot of people the last thing on their mind is to get educated. Like most of this planet is trying to figure out how to get their meal for the next day, trying to figure out like stay alive, try to avoid getting killed. Um, the fact that you managed to go educate yourself, you have no idea how lucky you are, right? Or you had parents, or you had the curiosity to go after information. So ignorance is not an insult. Stupidity is not an insult. Stupidity is either a function of your genetics or your environment. People, by the way, for the first time, a lot of people say ignorance is a choice in the age of information. It's still not a choice. It's still not a choice. Even for people with access to internet, the fact is that this is the age of information, but it's also the age of misinformation. There's so much misinformation out there that the good information is hard to, for people that don't have the skills, it's hard to figure out which one is true and which one is not. The fact that you managed to do that, you have the tools to do that, you're still very lucky. And obviously insanity, most people I think already know that insanity is not an insult, because obviously that's part of your biology. So none of these, I think we shouldn't look down on any of these group of people. We should look at them with all three of these groups of people with sympathy rather than hate.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't hate you guys, but seriously, that all of that stuff, Armin, I think that